Hello, my friend. Welcome to my long-awaited palette review video. I have been collecting palettes over the last few weeks, mostly from 3 brands. Well, actually all from 3 brands. So I've got 3 palettes from Oden's Eye. I have the Sigma Disney Cinderella palette, and then I also have 3 palettes from HipDot. And if you are interested in these palettes, the comparison, if you're wondering which one you should buy, I'm gonna break it all down for you. We're gonna do swatches, and yeah, I'm excited to share these with you because I think you're really going to love them. I'll talk to you in a second. Hang tight. We're getting into it right now. So instead of doing like full-blown, everything you need to know videos about all of these collections, I just wanted to kind of put a quick summary out there in case you were interested in any of these palettes. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put timestamps down below for each collection so you can skip to the one that you're interested in. And then I'm gonna do some comparisons at the end as far as value, which one's the best value, which one is gonna cost the least, which one has the most product in it. We're gonna be going through all of that later on. So again, timestamps are down below. But let's go ahead and start with the collection that I got first, which this is purchased. These are from HipDot, and this is their game night collection. And I was just so attracted to these palettes when I saw them. It really did remind me of my childhood. So there's 3 palettes in the collection. You can buy them as a collection or you can buy them individually. Let's go ahead and start with the Play-Doh palette. And I'm gonna go ahead and insert swatches while I talk about it. So of course, this one is based on Play-Doh, so it's going to be extremely vibrant, but I really appreciated that they included some of the natural matte shades that I think of when I think of Play-Doh. There's one pressed glitter in here, and that's the Sapphire Sparkle shade. I'm not a big fan of pressed glitters, but I know some people are, so I'm really thankful that that's the only one of these in here. Next up, we're gonna talk about the Monopoly palette. This one is really fun as well. I especially love the packaging on this one and how it really does look like a Monopoly board. Like the Play-Doh one where you saw the Play-Doh logo stamped in. With this one, you do have the stamps of all of the names of the streets. There's the luxury tax, there's the B&O Railroad, there's Community Chest and Chance, and it just really fits the different colors and the themes of Monopoly. With this one, you do have 2 pressed glitters, and those are in the center where you put, your stacks of cards there for Community Chest and all of that, which I thought was super cute. And then finally from HipDot, we have the Ouija palette, and this one really has more of an earthy, grungy vibe. It's very different from the other 2 palettes. There's 2 pressed glitters in here. We have the shade Lunar and Whispers are your pressed glitters, but they're not quite as chunky as other pressed glitters that I've seen in the past. Really beautiful shades in here. I think my favorite one is Summon, and it's just a fun color story with the peaches and the greens and the bold blue. It's just a really nice color story for a palette. As far as the formula for these, if I could compare them to any other formula that I own, it would be ColourPop. It's very similar to the ColourPop formula. The blendability, the pigmentation, the shininess of the shiny shades really remind me a lot of ColourPop. Now let's go ahead and move on to the Oden's Eye palettes. These were sent in PR. Tina from the Fancy Face was the one that put me on her PR list, so thank you again, Tina, for adding me. And these are the 3 palettes. They were all in collaboration with different influencers to celebrate different cultures. They're all honestly really good palettes, but for different reasons. I would say the one I'm having the most fun playing with is definitely Tina's, just because there are shades in here that I have never played with before. The shade Fancy is definitely my favorite. I'm also really loving that clear blue shade. Hummingbird is a gorgeous shade as well. This is really going to give you a lot of shimmer and a lot of bold color, but the mattes that are in here really do complement the rest of the shades very nicely. Now, the only shade in here that I don't think I will use much is Hibiscus, just because I feel like that's really gonna look better on other people than it does on me. It's just a little too intense for my personal preferences. But this palette really is incredibly fun to play with. Let's move on to the second one. This is the one that I'm wearing on my eyes today. This is the Red Dragon palette, which is the collaboration with Judy. Now, this This one, if I had to say which one was the calmest, the most subtle, I would definitely go with the Red Dragon palette. This one doesn't seem to have quite the intensity as the other two palettes. This one is definitely more natural, and you can really see that on my eyes and in the swatches. I love though that she put these pops of olive green in here. I think that adds another dimension, that it just makes the palette so much better. Kind of like Tina's palette and that one shade Hibiscus. I don't think I'm going to be using the shade Dragon much. I just don't typically wear bright reds because I'm not really great at using them, but maybe one day I'll get better at using them and it'll look better on me. But I do think this will probably look better on people of different skin tones than me. Overall though, again, really great palette, very easy to use. Third palette is the Giant Wolves palette, and this was a collab with Annette's Makeup Corner. And this one is so Annette, if you've ever watched her videos, all of the blues and the purples, and that's one of my favorite color combinations. I just put my video this week on Mad Marshmallows, which is my new marshmallow company, and the color scheme is purple and blue for the most part. Those are some of my favorite colors, so it's really cool to have those in a palette in complementary shades. Annette did a great job of picking shades that really work well together, and even the green, pairing the green with the purple or the green with the blues looks really, really pretty. If I had to compare Oden's eyeshadows to anything else I own, it would definitely be Sydney Grace shadows. I feel like the blendability is similar. It's not quite as intense as the HipDot palettes. The HipDot really goes on and really packs a huge punch, where I feel like Oden's eye is a little bit more buildable. You can make them punchy, but you can build, they're a little more versatile in that you can build them up to be super punchy, or you can hold them back and have them be a bit more subtle, and I personally really like that. And then finally, this is part of a collection, but this is the only eyeshadow palette. This was set in PR from Sigma. This is the Disney Princess Cinderella palette, and I am having so much fun with this palette as well. And the color story is very different than everything else that you've seen so far. We have mostly the purples and then the greens and the browns. Now this one doesn't have any pressed glitters either. I didn't mention that with the Oden's eye. That does not have any pressed glitters. Neither does this, but some of these shimmers in here aren't as intense as the ones that you're gonna see in the other palettes. They're definitely more like topper shades, or you wanna really build them up to full opacity, which you can with some of these shimmer shades. But then, like for example, with the shade Sweet Nightingale, that is a really opaque shimmer shade. The mattes are also very easy to blend. If I had to compare this to any other formula, I don't think it compares exactly, especially the topper shades, but the mattes I would definitely compare to Natasha Denona mattes. I feel like they work very similarly in how they go on the eye, how they build, how they blend. They remind me a lot of that. I'm trying to think of who I would compare them to as far as the metallics and the topper shades, and I honestly can't think of a company right now that they're like, but hopefully the swatches that I showed you really help to kind of maybe compare it to something that's in your collection. I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comments. So hopefully that was helpful, kind of breaking down each palette collection on its own. Now let's do a little bit of comparison in case you're torn between, you know, a palette from one versus a palette from the other. So let's talk value first. When we go into the HipDot palettes, now these all have different gram amounts, different prices, all of that. The Money Moves palette, which is the Monopoly palette, this is the most expensive at $30, and it breaks down to $1.43 per gram, which is very inexpensive for eyeshadows. When the least expensive shadows you're most likely going to find at, you know, indie brands and in Ulta, so not even in Sephora, but in Ulta, is around a little over $1 per gram. That's very, very inexpensive. So $1.50 is really, really cheap. There's also a lot of product in here. There's 21 grams of product. Hello, editing Jen here. I realized with the Monopoly palette that when I filmed, I didn't account for the two pressed glitter shades in the middle of the palette. I just missed them. So the pans for all the HipDot palettes end up being 1.5 grams per pan. That's it. That's the edit. Back to the video. I personally really like to see at least 1 gram of product because I want some time before my shadow runs out. So if you're buying this, you're getting a lot of product for your money. As far as the other two palettes, okay, so the Ouija palette is going to be your best value of all the palettes I'm talking about today. This is $26. You get 22.5 grams, which makes it $1.16 per gram, which is a heck of a deal for what you're getting in here. You get 15 pans, 1.5 grams per pan, super fat. All right, Play-Doh palette. So this one is the same price, but you're getting less pans, less product. So this is 18 grams, 12 pans, again, 1.5 grams per pan. So this is that same very similar price per gram as the Monopoly palette, $1.44 per gram. It's a little easier from here on in because these are all the same. So this is the Oden's Eye palettes. These are $34 each. So these have 13 grams of product total. There's 12 pans, which is 1.1 grams per pan. So they're gonna be smaller pans than these, which equals about $2.62 per gram. So you're entering like Too Faced territory, like the more average prestige brand price point. And then the most expensive one is the Sigma one. This is a $49 palette. You get 14 grams of product, 1 gram of product per pan. So this ends up being about $3.50 per gram, which is hitting that a little bit higher end of the prestige price point, but definitely not a luxury price point by any means. So if you're looking for the one that's the best value, we talked about that, and that's the HipDot Ouija palette is gonna give you the best value. Of course, the worst value or the lowest value per gram is gonna be the Sigma Cinderella palette. It's the most expensive, and you get one of the least amounts of product. It's very close to the amount of product that you get with the Oden's Eye. It's just 1 more gram of product you get in this versus this. If you want the most shades, again, we're talking the Ouija palette. This has the most shades out of all of these. The least amount of pans is gonna be a tie with any 12 pan palettes. So all of the Oden's Eye palettes are 12 pans, and then the HipDot Play-Doh is 12 pans. The most amount of product, of course, again, is the Ouija palette by HipDot. And the least amount of product you're going to get, which is 13 grams, is in the Oden's Eye palettes. One thing I didn't take into account with the Cinderella palette that I think is going to be important to some people, I know that it's important to me, is that it does come with a brush, where none of the other palettes come with a brush. And these are not like cheapy ABH brushes that they put in that don't seem like they would be of a quality that they would sell on its own. It's kind of like a throw-in brush. These are actual like legit Sigma brushes on either side. So you get this really nice double-ended brush with it. So if that adds to the value for you, that's gonna partly justify the price of why this one is a bit more expensive. The last detail I wanted to mention that matters to some people is the mirrors. So the Oden's Eye mirrors are pretty small. They all look the same. They all have these ovals. The Cinderella palette is a big rectangular mirror, and then these are all shaped differently in HipDot. So we've got this little butterfly mirror. We've got a nice, really big rectangular mirror here with the Ouija one, and then of course the Monopoly one does not have a mirror because it has this clear cover so you can really see the game board underneath. Now, here comes my kind of personal opinion about all of them and like which ones I'm probably going to reach for the most. And I will have to say probably the Ouija palette from HipDot is the one I'm gonna reach for the most. It's the most quote unquote wearable, but with also having fun shades in here to play with. I'm also really having fun with the Cinderella palette. This one has been a blast to play with. I love the color combos that I can create with this. And then also, of course, like I said earlier, the Hummingbird palette, which was the collab with Tina from the Fancy Face. This one, if I'm gonna go for something bright, this one's probably the one I'm gonna reach for. But are any of these palettes things that I wouldn't recommend? Absolutely not. Honestly, I can recommend to you with my whole soul every single one of these palettes. They're all really good, really high quality. It really is just what you're looking for. With that being said, my friend, it is your turn in the collective brain of makeup awesomeness, where we help each other not to buy crap and to buy things that are totally worth it. I would love to know your thoughts down in the comments down below. If you own any of these palettes, what do you think? I would love to know how they've been working for you. If you don't own them, are you interested in any of them? Do you think you're gonna pick any of them up? As of the filming of this video, they're all still very much available. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you found it helpful. If you did, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. I know it doesn't really look like it's changing much to you, but I promise you it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for hitting that button if you did enjoy. If you would like to hang out a little longer because you did really enjoy this video, YouTube should be recommending a couple of videos for you right over here to watch. But if it is your time to go, it is no problem at all. I totally get it. Thank you for hanging out as long as you did, and mad love to you. I'll see you in a video very soon. Bye!